Today is a good day to talk about bridges, and as you walk through the Bristol Suspension Bridge, and you thinking this is a historic moment, but we're going to talk about why hostile architecture or defensive architecture, as some would like to call it, and apparently these are not the same. But anyway, why was this added to the Bristol Suspension Bridge? First of all, something you need to understand is just the history of the bridge, and apparently between 1974 and 1993, there were about 127 recorded falls. And you're thinking, that is a lot. How do people just fall off the bridge? Well, anyway, you understand what that means. Anyway, and then in 1994 to 2003, 134 people also just fell off the bridge. So it brings to attention of the authorities, and they said, look, this bridge seems to be attracting unnecessary attention. So what we could do is put barriers. So in 1998 they decided to put barriers which you would consider hostile or defensive architecture. And the reason for this is that if you go past the bridge, normally it was probably about maybe 1 meter 20 the height of the railings, the protective railings, and now it's gone over well 2 meters with curves at the top of it. And that is now if you're trying to take a picture of the valley below and the canyon below and the river below, there is a road going down, you can no longer do that, and you're thinking, this is just blocking my view, I don't like it. And I think this is one of those things that you need to understand if you live in a highly populated area, big cities where you have historic bridges. And the same thing actually happened with the San Francisco bridge that just became synonymous to where people just fall off. And that is not a good thing. Anyway, back to Bristol. So once they added this defensive architecture, apparently this halved the amount of people falling off the bridge. And you can see signs sometimes where it says, if you're not feeling too well and you need to talk to someone, maybe that would, instead of, going over the edge, it would actually help you feel better. And yes, you were thinking, so what is defensive or hostile architecture a good thing? In this case, it prevents people from, falling off the bridge. And this is something that I think a lot of people tend to forget when they come to when it comes to designing a city, that things are very difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people are not really in their right mind, and you really need to protect yourself from people from themselves. And that is where hostile architecture or defensive architecture comes into place. And this is what happens on the bridge as well. And the other thing is that you could say you could put someone on the bridge. I don't think that's going to be enough. Because it's a bit more complicated, and apart from the expense or probably closing the bridge at certain hours, it's just really not feasible. So this is where hostile architecture comes in to solve some of the human problems that we've tried to solve over the years, but we've been unable to do so because you really don't understand the human psyche. The human mind is rather complex. So when you have to deal with that, yes, this is where the council or city council will decide, look, I know it's not the prettiest thing, you have a historic bridge, but then there isn't much we can do about it. The best thing we could do is just make it a bit more safe or more difficult for people to, it gives them a few minutes to think about what they're about to do and probably get help. And that is a good thing. Now, if you go back a few years, on this Clifton Suspension Bridge, someone in 1885, absolutely amazing story. It says Sarah Ann Henley, when she decided that she was going to just, take off from the bridge, and she fell 75 meters. But fortunately for her, apparently the wind caught the skirt that she was wearing, and that acted as a sort of a parachute. And she, instead of landing in the water, landed on the mud on the side. Basically, it slowed her descent, and she survived that. And it has been a sort of a story, a legend since then. So when you think about that, the story about people falling off is not something new. It's been going on for well over 100 years. But then, now, you need to do something about it. And that is what they've done. And I think that is a good thing. So now when people think about that, they're thinking, look, this is hostile architecture. We don't want this. And that is not something you want in your city. It's just really not a good thing. It just makes the whole area unsafe. And yeah, anyway. Now, this same suspension bridge, in recent years, in 2024, the human remains were found in a suitcase, and it made a lot of headlines. And people were like, "Oh, in Bristol of all places, you could think it's not even the most dangerous part of Bristol. Why would that happen?" But anyway, the whole story goes that. A couple of people were basically died, and they were basically murdered in a different location, and they had to come back. The bodies were found in a suitcase on the bridge, and the police arrested what's it called, Yotsin Andres Mosquera. Anyway, so. And it's just gruesome that a nice bridge where you could walk over the bridge, that so many really bizarre incidents have taken place on the bridge. And now this brings us to other societal issues and why sometimes the council will decide to put hostile design in their cities. For example, if you go to the Bristol station, and as you walk towards not the Bristol station, there's a train station near Bristol. So if you walk towards there, it's a really nice area. You know, it seems to be going some sort of modification. I don't know, gentrification. It doesn't matter. But they're basically trying to clean up the place. And you walk through there. It's a nice area. And what you notice is that the bus stop around the area would have a single seater. They've got bars in the middle, and people will say, "Oh, you see, that is another example of hostile design." Is it really though? Because people say, "Oh, that is anti-homeless." But when you think about it, first of all, I think it's rather practical, because you get the same thing on planes. When you sit in a plane and they've got this little divider that you can, the armrest, you can put it down. Basically, it creates a divide between you and the person sitting next to you, especially if you don't know who the person is. And I think that is important. You don't want people rubbing against you. It's just really bizarre. Especially if you're going to be in a plane and you'll be sitting there for such a long time. So, of course, when you have those dividers, it does, personally, I think it does two things. First of all, it means sometimes people sit and then they put their bag next to them, and then you see they take more space. Now, if you have the divider, if you want to sit, it's easier for someone to say, "Excuse me, can you move your bag?" And the divider basically creates a sort of a barrier, signaling to the person sitting there that you're a single person. Put your bag on your lap and let someone else occupy the space next to you. Okay, that said, there are other people who have said, "Look, the problem is that they're doing it for anti-homelessness, so they don't want homeless people sleeping on the benches on a bus stop." It's all right. So it just sounds really bizarre. But I don't think, when you think about the whole idea, why would you want a human being sleeping on a bench at a bus stop? That is something that shouldn't happen. So when you look at, if you go around Bristol, the area, the parks, you have benches, and you don't have this. You don't have spikes sticking up them. They're rather comfortable. Around the train station as well, you can see people sitting down, and it is comfortable for people sitting down there, especially when you're coming out of a train station and you're waiting for your taxi or someone to pick you up at the train station. So you need that location to sit down. Now, when you go inside the station where you buy the ticket, you would notice that they don't have any seating there. And I think the design is this: that first of all, the seating, if you pay for your ticket, you go through the barriers, you get to the other side, you have seating waiting for the train. But on the side before you buy your ticket, I could understand why you wouldn't want to put seats there, because, well, you don't really need it there. Most people, it should be a transit. So the train station, you're not going there to sleep or just to walk around. There are parks where you could go and sit down, and they've got chairs, benches there. So those are good. But the issue is this, that when you see people talk about, oh, look at hostile defensive architecture in big cities like New York or somewhere in London, but when you look at the bigger picture, if you have someone sleeping in a park, they need to pee, they need to do what they need to do. They will do it around the area they live in. And if you have a lot of homeless people there, it's not a good thing. And another thing is that a lot of the problems with someone, they're saying, oh, it's anti-homeless, it's preventing people from being, what's the word? It's just making it harder for them. I don't think that's the case, because most of the problems, for example, when you got people going on the bridge and falling off the bridge, is the problem is not the bridge itself. Is not that you put in all this hostile design to preventing people from doing what they want. Sometimes you have to prevent people from basically from themselves. And if someone is homeless, that's why you have structures like homeless shelters. They're not ideal. And that is why even when you go to a homeless shelter, they have hostile, I wouldn't say defensive or hostile setup. And the reason for this is this, that it is very human behavior, personality is very difficult to predict. Some people have mental health issues, others just have behavioral issues. Some people are on drugs. So you get all those, the mixture. So when you go to a homeless unit, and why they have their hostile setup is this: for example, you need to be in at a particular time, and after that they lock the doors, and then you need to be out really early. I think by 7 or 8 you need to be out of the shelter. It doesn't matter where you go. And the reason for this is, first of all, it creates routine. Human needs routine, and when you have people with mental health issues down on their luck, if you allow everyone to do whatever they want, the chaos will be absolutely unmanageable. It would be terrible. So I think the film In the Pursuit of Happiness, where Will Smith was he was homeless and he had to go to work and then rush over to the shelter to be able to sleep with his son, get a shelter overnight, and you have the structure there. It is rather hostile, but then you need to understand that it is very difficult to manage people. It is very difficult to manage crowds. And the same thing happens when you go to sporting events. Big sporting events with crowds, they always have a sort of a very unintuitive design. This where you make people go. If you're going into a tribune, people would go. You need to go through an entrance. The exit should be through another entrance, and then the crowd will be distributed through multiple streets. For example, you go to the London Notting Hill Carnival, the same thing. The trains are directed in such a way that the crowd would come in through this train station, and a particular entrance is just exit only. No one is allowed to go in. And then if you're about to leave the area, you need to go to another train station where it's only entrance only, and then move the crowd. So it just sounds counterintuitive that you would need to do that, but that is the only way to control such a crowd. And hostile design has something called collateral damage. And the reason why you would have collateral damage is this. For example, I think in New York, or somewhere in New York, there was this massive train station, and they noticed that during winter, a lot of homeless people would go into the train station because it's warmer, and then they'll sleep there. And then it's not only sleeping, pee, and they bring all their stuff. And now they're saying, we're trying to move these people into the shelters because there are shelters available, especially during winter, for people to go to. But then people would refuse to go to those shelters because they have pets. So if you have a pet dog, and they said, no, we can't have everyone bringing their pets. Someone might decide, okay, I have a pet snake, I'm bringing my pet orangutan or whatever. I don't know. But then people bring all sorts of things, and you don't want that. And so what they decided to do, first of all, was remove all the benches and the sitting area in the train station. Now, the collateral damage comes when people, if you come in and you need to get to the train station, wait for the next train to get to, you connect in the train station, you've got nowhere to sit. And so people had to sit on the floor. Now, the problem with sitting on the floor is that when you sit in some public spaces on the floor, then you have security, or the police would come and move you on, even if you have your ticket. And those type of hostile design is what people actually do not like, because they said, look, it does not make sense that you have such a thing where, because you're trying to be anti-homelessness, you're trying to push homeless people into the you're trying to push them away from public spaces, but then you're not thinking about the consequences it would have on people who are probably using the services. And others have said, look, we visited places like New York, and it's just really, really awful. You walk around from one side to the other, you get tired and you want to sit down, and you cannot. And then what that pushes people to do is go into one of the restaurants and have a drink. What if you don't want to have a drink? Well, we don't care. So you have those basically the other side of hostile architecture that a lot of people do not appreciate. You're trying to solve a problem whilst creating another one, and that is where a lot of people are saying, look, we don't want that. Now, back to Bristol. If you go into Bristol and the town centre, you notice something which also is an interesting thing. When you go around, you've got good architecture. You've got bike parks, railings for bikes. You can go take your bike right into the city, and into the mall, city centre, shopping centre. You put your bike there, and then you walk around, and you've got little entrances with benches where people could actually sit. And I think that is a good thing, because it also highlights something. Hostile architecture is a societal problem, that you're trying to solve a problem by making it very uncomfortable for people to be in certain areas. But you're not, basically you're solving the symptom, not the root cause of the problem. And a lot of the hostile architecture are often by basically homelessness. And if you were able to solve homelessness, and something I noticed in Bristol is that they don't have such a big problem. You have the university area, a lot of students, and I'm not saying it's cheap. It's a lot of students. You're there to study, and but not a lot of visible homeless people. Even when you go to the areas with abandoned churches, and some areas, it's obvious that it's been gentrified. Or if you go to the docks where you have the boats and the canals, they are rather clean, and there are no signs of hostile architecture. And And the reason for this is that if you are able to make affordable housing and mental health structures available for a lot of people in your city, and you have jobs, people have jobs that they're able to pay for housing, affordable housing, then if you solve those problems, then you don't even have to invest in hostile architecture. Because when you think about it, nobody wants to be homeless on the streets. Even people with addiction do not want to be on the street because it is rather dangerous. And another reason why, another thing that needs to be solved why you don't need hostile architecture is the problem of people running away from home due to, really toxic family environment. So that you cannot really solve, and part of it is probably addiction. Father is an alcoholic, or mother has mental health issues, or any other problems that people have at home. So it means young people, because of the really bad environment in in their families, they run away. Or sometimes there have been cases of girls being trafficked and all that. Anyway, the point is this: that hostile architecture should not really exist, either in Bristol or in major cities. What instead of designing and trying to put anti-homelessness, what they should do is focus the effort more on dealing with issues that actually lead to homelessness. Because if you were able to deal with that, the other issues it's a non-issue, and that, my friend, is the whole topic. And that is why it is a very difficult problem, especially with mental health and the suspension bridge and people jumping off and all that. But anyway, that's the topic, and I think that is what you need to do. Oh God, it's a complex situation, and humans are really, really complex and bizarre. I don't think there is an easy solution, and even the solution, hostile architecture, isn't solving everything.